Starting this fall, the City of Elmhurst will begin a citywide water meter changeout project requiring all residential and commercial water meters to be replaced. This project is needed because the majority of the city's meters are over 25 years old and have exceeded their life expectancy. The city has experienced many years of 18 to 20% of unaccounted for water. The city has hired Siemens as contractors to replace all water meters with highly accurate, non-moving part mechanical water meters that will aid in detecting leaks. The new water meters have the ability to provide on-demand reads as well as leak and tampering alerts and early identification of leaks before they surface. A customer portal will also be available for residents to electronically monitor for leaks and manage their water consumption online. Elmhurst water customers can expect to receive an introductory letter with project information. Project updates will regularly be posted on the city's website and social media pages. Residents are also encouraged to attend informational open house events that will be scheduled at City Hall. The water meter changeout project is expected to occur through spring of 2018 and is mandatory for all residents and businesses. The project will be completed in sections throughout the city. When Siemens is approaching a neighborhood, residents in the area will be sent a series of postcards requesting to schedule an appointment. Residents are asked to be responsive and schedule an appointment once this notification is received. The new water meter will be installed at no additional cost. Residents will be expected to have an adult over the age of 18 years old home at the time of appointment, which should take no more than 30 minutes to complete. Residents should attempt to locate their water meter in advance and ensure the meter is accessible for Siemens at the time of the appointment. On the date of the water meter changeout, the resident should take precautions and look for the logo on the installer's uniform and vehicle and make sure the installer's ID is visible before allowing the installer to enter the home. All of Siemens installers will be identified with an ID badge and will be driving marked vehicles. They will also be wearing project shirts with the project logo. Once the installer enters the home, residents will be asked to guide the installer to the location of the water meter. The installer will take the following steps to complete the water meter changeout. First, the installer will turn the water off at the main valve. Then the installer will exchange the old meter with the new meter. The installer will then turn the water back on, confirm proper flow direction, and inspect the installation to make sure no leaks are visible. The installer will connect the communication wire to the new meter and test to make sure a meter reading can be obtained. Finally, the installer will ensure that the work area is clean around the new water meter before leaving. During the installation process, the installer will take pictures of the old and new water meter. Once the water meter installation is complete, the installer will give the resident information on how to read the new meter and gain access to an online program called WaterSmart. WaterSmart is an online portal where residents can view account information, monitor daily water consumption, detect leaks, and set up notification alerts. The installer will also give the resident information on how to complete a customer service survey. Once the water meter is replaced, residents will receive a bill that will look the same as previous bills, but will include any remaining water use on the old meter, along with any cumulative use on the new meter. All subsequent bills will only include use from the new meter. A noticeable difference in the new bill will include uses registered in gallons versus cubic meters. Any billing questions should be directed to the city's utility billing department by calling 630-530-3111. The City of Elmhurst would like to thank all water customers for their cooperation during this important city project. Please visit www.elmhurst.org/water-meter-changeout for more information and to find out what area Siemens is currently working in. For questions on the installation process, please contact Siemens at 866-260-3176.
Have you heard of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation? Its purpose is to provide support through advocacy, education, and fundraising for the Elmhurst History Museum, our local Elmhurst history, and the Churchville one-room schoolhouse. Established in 2007 as a nonprofit organization, we initiated an endowment fund and raised funds to complete the renovation of the historic Churchville schoolhouse. We conducted a capital campaign to develop the new exhibit, by all accounts, the story of Elmhurst, at the History Museum, and we continue to provide financial support to enhance exhibits, programs, and events at the museum. Yes, we feel strongly about our mission and encourage you to become a member or donor of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. Please call or go to our website for more information to learn about the benefits of becoming a member or donor by investing in our town, our history, our heritage.
Welcome to Elmhurst Time Travelers. I'm Ken Bartels, your host, and in 2018, right around the corner, there are several centennials in Elmhurst. York High School's 100 years old, the American Legion's 100 years old, and the Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry is 100 years old. And we're here to talk about that today with John Quigley, the president and CEO of the Elmhurst Chamber. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Ken.
So, the centennial will happen all during next year. What does 100 years mean in the chamber world?
It's really a nice benchmark for chambers of commerce. Chambers actually began a growth period coming out of World War I, as there was all the strife worldwide. There were organizations that looked to unite countries that had previously been adversaries or foes, and business and chambers of commerce were one of the ways to do that. And actually, to this day, chambers of commerce are looked at for businesses that want to ship goods and products across lines and across oceans.
And of course, 1918, right at the end of World War I, so that makes perfect sense. You're an Elmhurst guy. 1918 in Elmhurst, not particularly significant other than the fact that we were coming right out of World War I and about to go into an era of unprecedented economic positiveness. People associate the 20s with the crash in 29, but leading up to 29, the 20s were pretty roaring.
Yeah, there was a good growth period, and Elmhurst also had considerable German heritage coming out of World War I. And so there was an effort on the German heritage within the town to become more American.
More American,
right. And there was a growth period out of that in terms of the businesses. But one of the biggest growth periods, obviously, was after the Great Chicago Fire. Elmhurst was a getaway place for a lot of successful Chicago businessmen. And when the fire burned everything down in Chicago, they literally moved out to their lodge homes in Elmhurst and set up business here. And one of the things they were able to do was get a railroad line to come through the heart of what is downtown Elmhurst. And while people to this day cry about the train traffic, the reality is that railroad made a huge difference for this community and still does to this day.
And still does to this day, no doubt about it. So I don't know, I'm surmising that the chamber or chambers, but in this case, the Elmhurst Chamber in 1918 would have been probably more of an informal association than some kind of very formal, structured circumstance. But knowing the Elmhurst history, as we both kind of do, businesses that people would recognize that were around in 1918, Elmhurst Chicago Stone is the obvious one. But some of the other businesses, perhaps not quite that around quite that long, but there are a lot of historical businesses in Elmhurst.
Well, there's real estate companies that have handed down generation to generation, and while they might not be the same name they were originally, and they might not have their sons, daughters, grandsons,
Right,
granddaughters,
exactly.
great-grandsons or great-granddaughters working, it's still there. And that also goes through with banks and funeral homes and a lot of other businesses that still exist today in our community. And Elmhurst really, a few years back, the Chamber did, just for our members, a multi-generational
Right.
celebration. And we had 75 members who were multi-generational, some of them fourth-generation family businesses.
I think the whole history of Elmhurst, from its founding, the train line that you mentioned, the earliest settlers, if you will, the eastern gateway to DuPage County and the whole relationship with the city of Chicago. But Elmhurst has always been a business hub throughout its entire history. Sometimes it's been stressed on the financial. At some point in time, we had all the biggest banks and whatever. Sometimes it's been commercial. Sometimes it's even been retail. What do you base that on?
Well, as the real estate mantra goes, location, location, location. And I've said this before, if you put a pin in a map where Elmhurst is at, and then do a circle around it, you are dead center in the middle of all of Chicagoland. And so that location, as the gateway to the western suburbs coming out of Cook County, so as you said, all the banks, when they were moving out of Cook County for the first time, it was Elmhurst where they came and set up. And then as development moved to Wheaton, Glen Ellen, then out to Naperville, out to Aurora, then those started to move westwardly. But we were that first step coming out of Cook County for so many different kinds of businesses.
So, going from sort of the broad-based Elmhurst circumstance to more of John Quigley and his relationship with the Elmhurst Chamber, but prior to getting involved with the Elmhurst Chamber in various ways, you were involved with chambers in Indiana prior to that.
Correct. I worked for the Herald newspaper group based in Maryville, Indiana, no relation to the Daily Herald group here. And my office was in Portage, Indiana, and I ended up running newspapers in Portage, Chesterton, and Valparaiso. I was their Porter County guy. But the Portage, Indiana Chamber of Commerce, as the local editor for the newspaper, asked me to serve on their board of directors. And at that time, there were some pretty powerful people because we had the Port of Indiana, and we had Bethlehem Steel and National Steel. So there were some pretty heavy-hitting businesses that did business internationally serving on our board of directors, and that was my first taste into serving on a chamber board.
Now, chambers, local chamber, local board, state chamber, state board, national chamber, national board. How does one transition from one to another? In other words, if a board member on the Elmhurst Chamber Board aspired to be a state chamber board member or some kind of next level, how would one go about doing that?
Pretty much all they'd have to do is ask. and either the state chamber or the U.S. chamber would come out and talk to them about what are their interests, what are their legislative concerns, what are their economic development concerns, their workforce development concerns, and see how they meshed with what they want to do. And then probably you'll start on a committee. So you'd work on a regional committee that would serve the boards, those larger boards, and ultimately you'd get a chance to serve on the board of directors. And that's not uncommon for us. We start encouraging members to serve on a standing committee, and then after they serve, we can look at some of those members and say, hey, they've got good board potential, let's see if they're interested in becoming a board member.
Now, I know you began your involvement with the Elmhurst Chamber 1991 or so, and then ultimately become the the president, executive director, the president, in 99. What did you encounter in 91 about the Elmhurst? What was the Elmhurst Chamber like in 1991 when you access it as a first-time person being involved?
Well, in 1991, the Elmhurst Chamber was in its professional stage. It was just starting to become a professional business organization. And so it was actually starting to operate as any other kind of business would operate, as opposed to a business association or a advocacy group or a special interest group. Prior to '85, staff involvement in the chamber was always part-time, always limited, even when there was an executive secretary that worked with the board. That was always a small position, part-time position. I look back on some of the budgets. I went back into the 1940s, and I have to laugh at what their budgets were and how big their board was and the scope of their operations. But in 1989, in '85, they hired an executive to run the group. And then in '89, they brought on a professionally trained executive, one who had gone through the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, state associations, worked with that, been educated on a variety of levels, from board development to finance to event running, all those kinds of things. And that's when the chamber finally began to look like a business operation. The budget increased, the expenses increased, but the scope of the programs, products, services, and events all increased. And I served on the board of directors in the 1990s for part of that growth period.
And it was during that period, Tachi Taronis is the professional executive that you referenced. The Elmhurst Chamber becomes certified, and as you said, a more professional organization. So unfortunately, Tachi passes away, and Elmhurst is searching for a new head of the chamber. You were at Elmhurst College at the time, and throw your hat in the ring for the head of the chamber and secure it. So now you're president of the chamber, What were your thoughts at that moment?
Well, the chamber was coming off of a bad recruitment year and a rained out Elm Fest. So, and Tachi, God bless him, died the night before our golf outing that I was chairing. And we were worried that nobody would show up for golf, and instead everybody showed up for golf. And it wasn't until 6 months later we learned that we were actually losing money per golfer, so that everybody who showed up to help support us was actually costing us money. And so we had some deep concerns. You know, membership had dropped considerably over previous years, and it had regularly fluctuated. You know, it would go down, and the board would go, we got to work on membership. So they work on it, it goes up, then they get away from it, goes down. And so one of the things when I came on, I said, if we expect to become a stable organization, not dependent on a particular event, program, product, or service, we're going to have to bring a membership person on. And at that time, my first full year board chair, Frank Catalano Jr., was in complete agreement with me. And before the end of my first full year, we managed to put funding in the budget to bring on a person to work on membership 20 to 25 hours a week. And that was the first step in stabilizing membership. And over the years, we've had full-time membership people been able to do that. And as you know, if nobody's out there selling your product, it's hard to get people to buy your product.
So the Elmhurst Chamber, going into its centennial year, is one of the largest and certainly one of the strongest chambers in the state, certainly in the more localized region. How big is the Elmhurst Chamber now?
We're almost 600 members, which makes us the third largest chamber in DuPage County. Naperville out on the west is the big boy, but they have much larger. Downers is just a little bit ahead of us, and our communities kind of mirror each other. We have a lot in common in terms of population, in terms of business breakdown, those kinds of things. So we do a lot of partnerships with the chamber that serves both Downers Grove and now Wooddale. It's called Chamber 630 that does that. And we do a lot of stuff with all of our chambers in the western suburbs. That's one of the big things that's changed is we now meet on a monthly basis. We do a half dozen multi-chamber events a year, and we may participate in 5 of the 6, others may participate in 3 of the 6, but it broadens the reach of all those chambers, big or small, and the smaller chambers around us can participate without having it be cost prohibitive because we're all paying our fair share.
I think it's fair to say that the Elmhurst Chamber has a reputation for being certainly business oriented, but it also has a reputation for being extremely social. It's a networking business organization. Is that by design, or did that just evolve?
I think it really actually just evolved. To be a good networking organization, you have to have good people. And I'm not talking chamber staff. You have to have good members. They have to be inviting. They have to be welcoming. So when a visitor comes to a breakfast or an after hours or a luncheon, educational program, whatever it may be, they don't feel left out. They feel welcomed in. And our board members help us do it. Our committee members help us do it. Our ambassadors help us do it. And we regularly hear from people who are members of other chambers that whether it's an ambassador ribbon cutting or it's a breakfast or an after hours, that they feel way more welcomed into our circle than they do in some of those other circles. And we strive to be that welcoming.
100-year-old chamber does that make us a old chamber? Does that make us a middle-aged chamber or a young chamber as you look at chambers nationally?
Well, when you break 100 years, you're older than most of the chambers in the country. Certainly in our area, you know, Villa Park, Bensonville, those chambers aren't that old. So to be that old is a great feeling to be able to do that. And ironically, we help run the Memorial Day Parade, and it's the Memorial Day Parade's 100th anniversary as well. What a fitting time to have that. I don't think the downtown businessmen who have formed our predecessor back in 1918 ever thought that that first Memorial Day parade would end up being run by their organization 100 years later. I like that. That's a really kind of cool feeling. You know, there's we have some members who are around to the early 40s and late 30s, but even that's way later than that 1918 mark.
Okay, that's a good spot to take our break. And when we come back from break, John, I want to talk specifically about the plans for the centennial in 2018. We're talking to John Quigley, the president and CEO of the Elmhurst Chamber, about the Chamber's 100th year anniversary coming up next year. We'll be right back.
The Churchville Schoolhouse opens the door to the best education in history. Visitors to the Churchville Schoolhouse take a step back in time to watch history unfold in a restored National Register of Historic Places property that dates to the Civil War era. Students of today walk in the footsteps of local farm children from the early days of DuPage County for an authentic living history experience led by a schoolmarm of the early 1900s. A visit to the Churchville Schoolhouse is hands-on, educational, and fun. Participants use slate chalkboards and McGuffey readers for the day's lessons. And children will be asked to follow proper classroom etiquette. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are practiced, and students test their skills during an old-fashioned spelling bee. And of course, no school day is complete without recess featuring games of the early 1900s. The schoolhouse is a popular place for scouts and day camps too. Group visits can also be arranged for service clubs, tour groups, and other adult organizations. The Churchville Schoolhouse Living History Program is operated by the Elmhurst Historical Museum. Call the museum today to book a field trip or find out more information. Call 630-833-1457 or visit our website at churchvilleschoolhouse.org. The Churchville Schoolhouse is waiting to open the doors for your school or community group. Plan a memorable learning experience today for the best education in history.
Welcome back to Elmhurst Time Travelers. We're talking with John Quigley, President and CEO of the Elmhurst Chamber, about to turn 100. Not John, the Chamber. As the centennial celebration gets underway next month, January, what in general is the plan for the year of celebration?
Well, we talked about whether or not we'd have special events throughout the year. But as a Chamber of Commerce, we're already doing 3 or 4 networking, educational, or special events every month. So the thought was, how do we enhance what we're already doing to tie in our anniversary year? So we're going to be looking at various ways to do that at all of our events throughout 2018. 2018, January, we'll actually do our annual awards gala, but it's our 99th. So it's actually celebrating 2017, and it won't be till January of 2019 that we're actually doing the final celebration of our centennial year.
So yeah,
January
18th gala starts it, the 19th gala will conclude it. Sure, absolutely.
And then we've got a couple other things that we're looking at. One, we're doing a major capital campaign. We're doing a $250,000 capital campaign related to our centennial celebration. All the chambers I've talked with or gone to seminars in terms of running capital campaigns, they're all major metropolitan chambers. The campaigns they're running are $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million. I don't know of any chamber our size and our scope trying to do a capital campaign of this style. My guess is we're going to get calls after we're done to see how successful we are. But we set up for $250,000. $150,000 of that is to endow our student intern endowment fund at Elmhurst College, and technically it's already endowed, We got a $100,000 gift from Ralph Piccianio to do that, but that fund's now at over $112,000 and moving towards the $150,000 mark. We should be there possibly before 2017 ends, which would be really nice. Then our Second Century Fund, we set a $100,000 mark. Within that is $50,000 to do some kind of public Civic Hall of Fame memorial. We've had 25 years of Civic Hall of Fames through the Chamber, and while we have plaques up at City Hall and at our Chamber, there's no public display of that. And we want to find a good way to recognize that publicly, and we figure our centennial year is a good way to do it. And that funds at over $37,000 of the $100,000 we want. And we'll be able to fundraise throughout the entire 2018 year.
As a membership organization, how has the reception, and I know you just mentioned the dollar amount response to date, but a capital campaign for a membership organization where you're paying to be a member, how has that been received?
Well, it's been received well because we've also done things to set it up in advance. So the board of directors is actively involved in this campaign. All of our committees are actively involved in this campaign. So they're all doing pieces and portions of the campaign. So they're out there talking about the value of the campaign. They're writing checks or making pledges to the campaign. And as our numbers go up, that will encourage more people to do that. We've reached out to all our members to contribute, and we'll continue to meet one-on-one with specific members in hopes of getting gifts that we think are appropriate for this campaign. It's unusual to do the campaign, but part of that groundwork we laid is we completely redesigned the logo, not without your help as chair of our marketing committee. You did a great job with the marketing committee. So we redesigned our logo, which is right up here. This is the centennial version of the logo. And then as part of the marketing committee work, we just unveiled in August our new responsive website, which is as state-of-the-art as a chamber could hope for, certainly for a chamber our size. It's going to increase traffic to the website. It's going to increase linkage to all the other Google search and all those other search engines out there. So we're going to see great rewards from that. And we've gotten a great response from those kinds of things. And when people see that investment in your organization, they want to be a part of that. They want to say, I helped do that. I helped take it to that next level.
And as with all good logos, the significance of the 6 colors?
Well, we've had an elm leaf in the chamber logo back into the 1980s in various forms or fashion. And we wanted it updated, we wanted it fresh, we wanted it new. And this logo is actually 6 colored because those are the colors of an elm leaf as it changes over the course of the year, which I think is pretty cool. And it's a great story to tell too. It's a great looking logo, and we're already using the leaf itself without our name in various places, and people are already recognizing it. And the response to the new logo announcement and the response to the new website has been phenomenal, both from members and the community at large.
So why is it important to the average citizen in Elmhurst who perhaps only, quote unquote, only lives here as opposed to work here, but why is a successful chamber important to every person who lives in town?
Because a successful chamber makes the business community successful. And a successful business community keeps your community alive. Thanks to the chamber and the city, downtown Elmhurst isn't what it was when I was working at the Elmhurst Press in 1985. And there were plenty of vacancies and empty storefronts. So when the city wanted to do a special tax area in the downtown, the chamber was one of those organizations that said, we think that's a good idea. That can help revitalize the downtown. And we have continued to be active on a legislative front and on an economic development front, even more so during my tenure from 85 to 99. We have endorsed all kinds of things in the downtown and around the community that have helped increase business. And when you have a better business base, you get higher property taxes out of those businesses because they invest in their properties, and you get more sales tax out of those businesses. And oh, by the way, their employees dine and shop and do everything they can while they're in town as well, even if they don't live in town. And for the average residential property tax owner, I understand that they think their property taxes are high, but if there wasn't a business base contributing to that residential, to the property tax base and to the sales tax base and to the fees and other things that they have to pay for, they'd be paying double what they're paying now. That's not always clear to them, but that's what would happen. We've got businesses in our town that are paying $200,000 a year in property tax, 70% of which goes to the school district, 10% of which goes to the city, 6% of which goes to the park district. And that's a business that has no kids in the school district, the library district, or the park district. And so that one business is contributing a huge amount of money to those taxing bodies without putting any kind of burden on them.
Well, and I think too, the emergence of the chamber in the last 10 plus years as an organization that speaks for business citywide. Yes, there are all sorts of businesses that are in Elmhurst that are not chamber members. So you're not actively advocating for their positions on various things. And yet, the chamber, I know, has taken positions that have been of great benefit to non-member businesses all up and down the spectrum. As the community, most community members would know, Elmhurst is a very diverse community from a business economic development perspective. Everything from Grand Avenue automobile dealerships down the York corridor into the downtown, which is its own taxing entity, sliding over to Spring Road in York and Vallette and down to Butterfield, New York. And you have members in all of those places.
We do, and we actively advocate for economic development related issues in each of those business districts, whether it's Elmhurst Crossing at Route 83 in St. Charles, which, I mean, when I was a kid, you can remember what a dump that place was. The only thing good about it was that there was a Little League ball field and the city's garage, Public Works garage, to the north of it that got more use than that shopping center did at times. And now it's got one of the top producing coal stores in the country. It's got a great food store. It's got outlot buildings that nobody thought would get built 20 years ago. They're now there, increasing business in that area. North Avenue and 83 is a vibrant area that will undergo some more redevelopment in the years to come. The North York Road Business District, new businesses, major new businesses coming in there. And now that some of those major new businesses are in, you'll see smaller businesses start to redevelop in that area as well. And that's going to go the same for Butterfield and York with the new hospital and some other things that are going on there. You'll see some redevelopment of that. That south end of Elmhurst, while some of it doesn't fall into the District 205 public school district, the redevelopment down there in terms of business, housing, townhome, condo, senior living, all that kind of stuff is amazing from when I was a kid. And that area was basically Selezi Edelson car dealership, and then at the far west end of it, it was Elm Rec bowling and skating rink.
You're in shouting distance of a 20-year anniversary as head of the chamber, so I'm interested in, as you are about to lead your organization into its next century, what are some of your favorite moments during your almost 20-year tenure as president?
Wow. Well, for the longest time, the gorilla in the living room was Elmfest. So it was the tail that wagged the dog. So as good an organization as the Chamber was, in the 1990s, Elmfest dictated what the Chamber could be or would be, depending on the success or failure of Elmfest. And so when I took over in 1999, in November of 99, Elmfest was coming off almost a complete rainout, and I had two choices. It was, now's the time to walk away, or can I figure out a way to reinvent it and change it and minimize the Chamber's economic risk? And I was able to do that. And so for 7 of the next 9 years, we outperformed budget of Elmfest and did very nicely. But it still took 6 months worth of staff work and volunteer work to put together. And so when the economy turned in 2007, we looked at it and said, well, it's been a good run. We like it, but we just can't take the risk of doing it again, and so we have to walk away. And I got called by a national magazine to do a story on it, how a chamber can walk away from its biggest event and still survive. And the sub-headline on the story was, "The Guy Who Killed Elmfest." Because I jokingly said, that's what's going to be on my grave. It'll be "The Guy Who Killed Elmfest." And I'll go, yeah, you, I remember you.
Right.
You know.
And a program note, there is an Elmhurst Our Kind of Town program on the history of Elmfest, including its ending, but that's not for today.
Yeah, and there were weird things that happened at golf outings, weird things that happened at steak fries, weird things that happened at Elmfest. It's so much goes on. And one of the things I've always liked about every job I had is, while I went into the office going, this is what I want to get done today, I was lucky if I ever got to that list, because every day something new came down the pike. So it didn't become boring and routine and mundane. It sometimes got really frustrating. I joked to my board, I said, once we get through the anniversary year, I'm retiring. And then I said to myself, well, that's stupid. I should retire before I have to do all the work for the anniversary year, and then they can just invite me back for the anniversary year. So I figure if I'm gonna make it through the anniversary year, I'll make it for a few years after that.
Absolutely. Now, somebody sat down and interviewed someone from the Chamber in 1918 and said, well, what do you think things are going to look like in 2018? So what are things going to look like 100 years from now?
Oh my goodness.
From a Chamber perspective.
From a Chamber perspective. Well, I couldn't give you a slightest guess, because just the way people who lived in 1918 got to go through 2 world wars, the space race, the nuclear race, depressions,
Vietnam,
all those kinds of things, the advance of airplane travel, the advance of cars,
cell phones, computers.
Yeah, all those kinds of things. Looking now, all those things change almost every other year. It's not a 25-year gap from change.
Is there going to be a chamber?
Yes, I think there will be.
Okay.
Because I think there will need to be a voice for a business community. But it may be completely online, like some schools are. Chambers may do everything completely online. I still think there's a place for one-on-one connections.
The president may be a robot.
It could be. Some have said it is already, and we're moving there. But really, there's got to be someone who's going to go to the city council meeting and speak out in favor of something or against something that's good or bad for the business community. And we do that, and we do that more and more. And I know our members appreciate that advocacy on our part. And that's why we've been actively involved with the Illinois Chamber of Commerce. We've been actively involved with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so when those organizations want to do stuff in our area, in the western suburbs, we're one of the chambers they call and say to partner on.
The Chamber is a membership organization, as we've established, and yet during the centennial year, there will be some opportunities for the community at large.
Correct.
To be involved in the celebration. We've already talked about the campaign, which would be a wonderful way for people to get involved. What other events will be open to the public? I don't expect you to rattle them all off, but in general.
Yeah, well, in most cases, our events are open to the public. The public can attend. We have very few member-only events. And so if a member wants to come to our golf outing, if a non-member wants to come to our golf outing, or come to the awards gala, or come to the new teachers luncheon, they're welcome to do that. We've never closed our doors to the non-member. They may pay a little more than the member does to participate because we're there for our members primarily. But we know overall that while the work we do benefits our members, the work we do also benefits the business community at large. And by benefiting the business community at large, we benefit the entire community at large. I'm very proud of that. It's one of the high points of what we've been able to do, how we're viewed in the community, and that our opinion is sought and respected. And when the media thinks there's an economic development issue or a tax issue in this community, they call us and they say, what do you think? Where are you at on this? And most recently, we were the first organization to endorse the 6-story parking deck in downtown Elmhurst. And there were people who said, that's bad, it's horrible, don't do it. And the moment that deck got committed, almost $100 million worth of economic redevelopment projects got committed to within a half block of that 700-car location.
Well, and we both know that the Chamber's influence in Elmhurst, as you just said, at an all-time high. We also know that influence at certain points in time was nowhere near that, and in some ways the Chamber was just an organization for its members as opposed to a community organization with benefits for members. Mm-hmm. So, closing thoughts for our cable audience on the centennial and what it means to your organization.
Well, you're going to see great stuff out there about us. Stories have already been appearing on our new logo, our new website. Now the capital campaign's gone public, and so stories are going to be appearing about that. There will be regular updates. You don't have to be a chamber member to support the capital campaign. So if you want to see a Civic Hall of Fame memorial somewhere in Elmhurst, you can donate to us. If you want to support our student intern endowment at Elmhurst College, you can write a check directly to the college. By the way, all those gifts are tax deductible, whether they're done individually or through your business. So that's a great way to give. We've got a lot of good things going on. It's a great chamber. I'm proud to be the president and CEO of it, and as the now longest tenured chamber executive in DuPage County, I'm proud of that too. And one of the reasons I can say that is because of the strength of our community, the strength of our businesses, and the strength of our members.
Well, thank you, John. We'll look forward to going through the centennial year with you. And thanks for coming on Elmhurst Time Travelers.
And thanks for your gift to the campaign.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. This has been Elmhurst Time Travelers. Happy New Year, by the way. We're about to get to that point in time. For John Quigley and Ken Bartels, we'll see you again.
Have you heard of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation? Its purpose is to provide support through advocacy, education, and fundraising for the Elmhurst History Museum, our local Elmhurst history, and the Churchville one-room schoolhouse. Established in 2007 as a nonprofit organization, we initiated an endowment fund and raised funds to complete the renovation of the historic Churchville schoolhouse. We conducted a capital campaign to develop the new exhibit, by all accounts, the story of Elmhurst, at the History Museum, and we continue to provide financial support to enhance exhibits, programs, and events at the museum. Yes, we feel strongly about our mission and encourage you to become a member or donor of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. Please call or go to our website for more information to learn about the benefits of becoming a member or donor by investing in our town, our history, our heritage.
The Churchville Schoolhouse opens the door to the best education in history. Visitors to the Churchville Schoolhouse take a step back in time to watch history unfold in a restored National Register of Historic Places property that dates to the Civil War era. Students of today walk in the footsteps of local farm children from the early days of DuPage County for an authentic living history experience led by a schoolmarm of the early 1900s. A visit to the Churchville Schoolhouse is hands-on, educational, and fun. Participants use slate chalkboards and McGuffey readers for the day's lessons. And children will be asked to follow proper classroom etiquette. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are practiced, and students test their skills during an old-fashioned spelling bee. And of course, no school day is complete without recess featuring games of the early 1900s. The schoolhouse is a popular place for scouts and day camps too. Group visits can also be arranged for service clubs, tour groups, and other adult organizations. The Churchville Schoolhouse Living History program is operated by the Elmhurst Historical Museum. Call the museum today to book a field trip or find out more information. Call 630-833-1457 or visit our website at churchvilleschoolhouse.org. The Churchville Schoolhouse is waiting to open the doors for your school or community group. Plan a memorable learning experience today for the best education in history.
Starting this fall, the City of Elmhurst will begin a citywide water meter changeout project requiring all residential and commercial water meters to be replaced. This project is needed because the majority of the city's meters are over 25 years old and have exceeded their life expectancy. The city has experienced many years of 18 to 20% of unaccounted for water. The city has hired Siemens as contractors to replace all water meters with highly accurate, non-moving part mechanical water meters that will aid in detecting leaks. The new water meters have the ability to provide on-demand reads as well as leak and tampering alerts and early identification of leaks before they surface. A customer portal will also be available for residents to electronically monitor for leaks and manage their water consumption online. Elmhurst water customers can expect to receive an introductory letter with project information. Project updates will regularly be posted on the city's website and social media pages. Residents are also encouraged to attend informational open house events that will be scheduled at City Hall. The water meter changeout project is expected to occur through spring of 2018 and is mandatory for all residents and businesses. The project will be completed in sections throughout the city. When Siemens is approaching a neighborhood, residents in the area will be sent a series of postcards requesting to schedule an appointment. Residents are asked to be responsive, and schedule an appointment once this notification is received. The new water meter will be installed at no additional cost. Residents will be expected to have an adult over the age of 18 years old home at the time of appointment, which should take no more than 30 minutes to complete. Residents should attempt to locate their water meter in advance and ensure the meter is accessible for Siemens at the time of the appointment. On the date of the water meter changeout, the resident should take precautions and look for the logo on the installer's uniform and vehicle and make sure the installer's ID is visible before allowing the installer to enter the home. All of Siemens installers will be identified with an ID badge and will be driving marked vehicles. They will also be wearing project shirts with the project logo. Once the installer enters the home, residents will be asked to guide the installer to the location of the water meter. The installer will take the following steps to complete the water meter changeout. First, the installer will turn the water off at the main valve. Then the installer will exchange the old meter with the new meter. The installer will then turn the water back on, confirm proper flow direction, and inspect the installation to make sure no leaks are visible. The installer will connect the communication wire to the new meter and test to make sure a meter reading can be obtained. Finally, the installer will ensure that the work area is clean around the new water meter before leaving. During the installation process, the installer will take pictures of the old and new water meter. Once the water meter installation is complete, the installer will give the resident information on how to read the new meter and gain access to an online program called WaterSmart. WaterSmart is an online portal where residents can view account information, monitor daily water consumption, detect leaks, and set up notification alerts. The installer will also give the resident information on how to complete a customer service survey. Once the water meter is replaced, residents will receive a bill that will look the same as previous bills, but will include any remaining water use on the old meter, along with any cumulative use on the new meter. All subsequent bills will only include use from the new meter. A noticeable difference in the new bill will include uses registered in gallons versus cubic meters. Any billing questions should be directed to the city's utility billing department by calling 630-530-3111. The City of Elmhurst would like to thank all water customers for their cooperation during this important city project. Please visit www.elmhurst.org/water-meter-changeout for more information and to find out what area Siemens is currently working in. For questions on the installation process, please contact Siemens at 866-260-3176.